Hello, everyone. This is our first Uncover Method podcast. Today, we're starting with a very good friend of mine, Jeffrey Lester, and we're going to be talking about a very, very interesting topic that I believe strongly could help men become more confident in themselves and become better leaders in their communities and in their everyday life. So, welcome, Jeff.
Hey, brother. Great to be here with you on the journey.
I'm very happy that you were the first one to accept my invitation for this new endeavor. And I'm really, really excited to go in and chat about this. So, as this is a completely new podcast, I will be mixing things up. So first of all, I wanted to check in with you. And I use these 4 guiding words in a lot of things that I lead men with, which will be the men circles, and even the part of Uncover Method is based on this as well. So I'd love to just take a few breaths in with you. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Just 2 men breathing together and making weird sounds. I know you're probably after your morning routine, so you're much more grounded than me. So
We get there together.
thank you for that. And I'd love to start with asking you 4 simple, rapid fire questions. And I'd love for you to share the 4 things that just come up. So on the next inhale, I want you to connect with what you feel.
I feel excitement, and it's showing up right in my chest, in my heart. I feel the temperature in the space. And when I put my attention towards the feeling of excitement, I get gratitude for being here with you, for our connection, our relationship, our friendship.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Next one, I wanted to connect a little bit deeper on what you love
What do I love?
in this moment right now.
Yeah. The journey, being human, being here with all of its experience. Right now, what do I love? Opportunity to express the transformation, the life experience that allows me to feel comfortable in myself to express the insights I've gained from life, to share, to contribute to you who's listening, and to be in this container together. I love it. I feel like it's sacred, right?
I mean, that's what we want to create together. Yes, exactly. Yeah, thank you. And the last one I wanted to check in with you is, what do you feel you need at this moment? Is there something missing or something that you would love to have?
In this moment, I know that I want to move. I will move after our show more vigorously than I have some exercise. My body wants to move and connect with nature. And what I recognize is in the past days, weekend, it's Wednesday, so Monday and Tuesday, and even a little bit on the weekend, I was feeling connection. I really would like some personal, interperson connection.
Mm,
And I got that. I got a lot of that yesterday, and it's a reminder that the desire is there. If we can put patience with when I practice patience, I know it's coming. So then to become present with what is, and then experience the gift of this moment and know that the desire, the need is coming.
mm.
Mm.
So, if I heard you right, you need more of a social connection or a connection with a deeper conversation.
A social connection. I feel I have a lot of deep conversations with coaching and working with clients, whether it's in a container around yoga or the work that I do. So a lot of deep, meaningful connection. What I like is what sometimes I feel the need for is a lighter connection of let's spend time together, do something together, uh, hang out. It's the balance of the two, right? Deep, meaningful conversations and also being with in a social, relaxed experience.
Mm. So connecting from both sides of having fun, but also fulfilling that deep need for connection, as you mentioned, having your coaching sessions with clients as well. That's so beautiful, and thank you again for sharing. That's something that I also think a lot about, where I'm looking after the week and I'm looking at the calendar and because we're all both busy and sometimes I find myself filling that space with maybe too much work. Um, I'm finding myself now engaging in like, okay, I need to leave this space in the calendar so I can connect, just having fun. And that's something that I did yesterday as well, where I could have worked, but also I was invited to birthday of a friend, and having just that breather, but also around other people, I think it's really nice and good balance. It's almost mm, like drinking something nice and warm in the
Mm.
evening.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you for this check-in, and I think we can move on to the next part, which I'd love to ask you a question where I don't think I've ever asked you this, and we had a lot of conversations over the years, but you strike me as a person who's changed a lot in his life and constantly striving to update your habits, the way you grow, and obviously learn so much over the years. Mm, and I feel like you're living right now in a very balanced and safe space for yourself. However, I'd still want to ask you if you had been told that you have a year to live, a beautiful year where it's just last year on earth for you, um, and in full health, would you change anything in your current life, or would you be able to look at your daily life or weekly or monthly or whatever is happening in that year and evaluate the things that bring you the most joy and be able to maybe disconnect from the ones that don't so much, knowing that it's
Mm.
your last year?
Such a potent question. Essentially brought to a crisis experience of being electrocuted
Mm,
for enough time. It was a more than just a shock, ouch, I'm okay. It was a consistent shock for 20 or 30 seconds. And what I got from that was I really am proud of and grateful for the life that I'm living. It didn't feel like I share it as a near death experience because in the moment it was life or death. Uh, to get out of the the have I had a cord wrapped around me that was plugged to the main,
Yes. Hmm.
and it took everything
And
in me in order to.
if you can share with the guests as well, this happened, very early in the morning as well, when you were rushing to the airport, as far as I remember, and it kind of caught you by surprise. It's not like you were working on your electrical supply; you were
Right.
caught off by surprise. And then I remember you mentioned that your hand squeezed so much that you couldn't release, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I had given myself plenty of time to be in no hurry. I had a flight around 7 a.m. and I needed to meet a taxi driver. So where I am is a bit out of in the middle of nowhere. So I have this old truck, this old Jeep, and the morning was cold. So what I do in order to make sure it starts is I plug it up to an old slow charger on cold mornings. And when I was unhooking it at 3:30 in the morning, I pulled the as you do, I pulled the end of the extension cord that was plugged into the charger off, like it ripped off. It in my opinion, it was cheap design, so it is what it is. Leaving the two wires exposed, and of course the end of the extension cord is still plugged in the wall. As I was putting this away, I accidentally, if this had been during the day or where I had more faculty, I might well have noticed that, hey, that's dangerous. I should unplug it at the other end of the wall or steer clear of that. And it's the middle of the night, it's dark, and I ended up touching the end of that wire, and it was wet outside also. And of course, I was in my PJs and my underwear, barefoot.
For
The
everyone
truck
to
started.
imagine.
The good news is the truck started, but when I was putting things away,
Mhm.
yeah, I touched the end of that cord and it absolutely seized me. And
Wow.
the electrocution convulsed through my entire body, so my body spasmed and I like gripped onto the cord and it attached to my forearm. First thing that happened was I fell to the ground. As I was falling to the ground, I had the realization I'm being electrocuted. And I've been
Mhm.
electrocuted a lot. I used to work with my dad doing some electrical work, and it's usually like a quick holy shit zap. And it's
Yes,
like,
zap.
ooh, let me go turn the breaker off. I'm not fucking with that. So this grabs me, and I
But it
tell
felt
you, like,
different, right? It felt
it
different
felt,
because it was way too long, right?
yeah, it was way too long, and it was ridiculous amount of power coursing through my
Mhm.
body. And what immediately transitioned me from, oh, I'm being electrocuted in a casual way to, holy shit, I need to, like, this is life or death, was when my completely animal response was to reach over and grab it and pull it off. And that took substantial will. So I had to even overcome my animal response of saving myself to inviting in even more of my will. And within moments, I was praying. I was like, I can't remember specifically if I was yelling this out loud or in my head so loud, but I was, God, please help me. Reaching over, taking all my energy to reach over with my right hand over to the left arm to pull the thing off. And it took me 3 times to finally pull it off. And that was, I can only imagine that was
Because
25
also, can
seconds.
I stop you? You at this
Yeah.
time when this is all happening and you're describing this, your body being electrocuted all the time. This is not like you have a break. This is
Yeah.
where you're directly connected to the
The
wire,
juice was,
to the plug, and then you have nothing in between you and the ground, so the electricity is flowing through you.
yeah. The juice was
Ooh.
on full blast the whole duration. So what seems like a very quick 25
Mhm.
seconds felt like an eternity.
And
So,
at that time, can I stop you
yeah,
here for a second? In that
of
time,
course.
did you, obviously, this was already a physically traumatic experience, and I wanted to ask you, was there any time that you felt like this might be it? Was there a moment
Absolutely.
where you were like, Ah, this is how I go.
I did feel like this could be it. And what was interesting to me, and this is a reflection of my relationship with death, and that at a conscious level, I'm okay with the idea of death. I've experienced a lot of death in my life, a lot of personal mini deaths in the psyche, but also family members dying, being connected with spiritually the idea of death, and understanding that for me it's okay. In fact, death is something that is a transformation to be embraced. And I see that through the lens of the aging process and the getting closer to death rather than the not I did not expect this to be happening right now moment. And what surprised me in that moment was a undescribable, ineffable will to absolutely fight for my life, to absolutely fight for my life. And that's what the experience was. And it was so much that I'm going to give this everything I got and then some. And as the juices, the electricity is hitting me, my whole body is spasmed. So to simply reach over, I fell down on my back. To reach over and grab, it was like, can imagine doing the last rep of a hard set of workout, and it's like the failure set, and it was
Mm,
everything in me to get that over there. So I was fighting for my life. That's what made the experience so significant.
of course.
And reflecting, you shared before that I do have this desire to grow and to transform, and I have invited a lot of those experiences in my life, whether I'm participating in a container where we walk on fire, walk on coals, something like that, that's a significant event, that's as if it's a
Mm.
crisis point, but it's a manufactured crisis point. There's that sense of safety within me. I've seen other people doing it. And
There's
here I'm
more
alone.
control in that
Yeah,
container, whereas here you're alone, middle of the night. Nobody will know you.
nobody around.
Nobody will know what happened, and someone will find you later on. Um, I mean, it's
Exactly.
remarkable, and I'm very happy that you're here with us. And I also didn't want to interrupt you earlier, but I want to ask you this question. Um, as you said, you're completely fine with the death and the almost like inviting the death into your life because it is part of life as well. And you've alluded to somehow dying a lot of times in our lives in the way that we change a lot, and there's always some parts of us that are dying. Um, how would you say or describe where's that will to live coming from? Because if we're fine with dying, if we're completely fine, what is so beautiful in our lives that keeps us so strongly attached to it? And I don't want for this question to sound grave in any way, shape, or form. It's probably the opposite. It's the celebration of life that I'm trying to get at, because I've had multiple situations in my life, as you know as well, where I had a near death experience, or in 2016 where I was pronounced dead after an accident. And still yet, I find myself completely fine with that. However, I love life so much. And I think
Hmm.
you've experienced the same thing, that when you describe that emotion, that power that you gave it all to come back, what makes life so amazing to live that we grip so strongly to it?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I feel like I will dive into that. And I feel like there's different angles to approach death. One is to approach life in the context of a near death experience. One is, and I'm reminded by you shared with me about how you were surfing and you got thrown off and you got sucked into the water. And there's that aspect of surrendering, of letting yourself be taken back to life. And then there's the experience which I had, which was a complete knockdown, drag out fight for the life. And I feel like in that moment, had I surrendered, I would have been a barbecue. They would have found me cooked through and through. And also, I recognize the moments where it makes sense to surrender and let life come back, or let be brought back to life, right?
Let that moment pass in
Yeah.
a way.
Yes, absolutely. And so, what about life is so extraordinary? Well, this morning I was even waking up at 3 a.m. because I needed to catch a flight to go work on a project with a friend, a container, hold space with him and his community. And for me, like, that's how I orient my life in order to have these experiences to support others in contribution, because for me, that's so aligned with my personal growth and my journey. So it was part of it was like, shit, I still got to get to the airport. Like, I've got work to do here, and I
You've
believe
got work
that,
to do.
yeah,
Yeah, you've got
and I
legacy. You got legacy to leave behind.
right, and even this was even more immediate. It was, of course, it was the fight for my life, but also, like, as I come out of it, it's like, am I okay? Am I still going to be able to get to the airport and everything like that? Because I truly, from the essence of my being, want to show up, and it's very much that I've tapped into purpose in my life, and that's an ongoing journey. And I feel like that's one of the most beautiful things I've experienced. And I know that I speak for both of us. We've both had amazing experiences in our life, connection with community, nature, our own health, our own discovery of what is life through us, through me, through you. And all of that is beautiful. And right now I'm so connected with purpose and the journey of how can I explore life through purpose. And it's not always been that way. The excitement for life could have been years ago when I was a different person. The excitement for the next piece of media that I was interested in, or TV show, whatever that was, like, completely different thing that would motivate me. And I feel like that was much less substantial than the motivation to live that I have now, is driven by
That's
purpose.
exactly what I
And
wanted to ask you. Is
yeah,
do you feel, obviously, again, knowing our stories and the backstories, do you feel that having a purpose in life, and the one that you're deeply, deeply connected with, um, how would you say, does it, obviously it differs in terms of having one life where we are excited by TV series and shows and entertainment, um, and the other one where we are not only connected to the purpose, but that purpose that we have found for ourselves is connected to not only helping others, but also creating. And that, I think, beautifully brings us to one of the first main questions I wanted to ask you on the topic today, which is, how do you see the power of intentionally creating spiritual containers for ourselves as men, that could help us to bring more purpose and more fulfillment to our lives?
yeah. The greatest risk in life is, in my opinion, is to not seek and fulfill purpose. This comes, I also believe this comes for individuals at different phases of their life. I feel like while we are living and while our pulse is okay, it's really easy to stay comfortable. And the fight of our life whilst we're living and while we're okay in our body, the fight of the life is the inner battle. It's to overcome all of the distractions, all of the different things that are keeping us, and this is an internal experience, from fulfilling the inner desires, from fulfilling the deepest mission that we have. And that's an individual journey. And I feel like in the context of a container, we're able to share that and we're able to see others embarking on that. It's one of the most powerful archetypes that we can see another human being embodying their purpose. And of course that inspires us. And that's where, the heroes of the movie come from. That's why we're so inspired by that. And if that lives unlived in us, that's hell on earth. That's my experience. So we'll
Yes, I
suffer.
agree.
We will seek to alleviate that suffering through all kinds of superficial distractions, medications, and the awareness, the wisdom, the most precious piece of wisdom is that I've got to go through that fire. I get to go through that fire. That's the initiation. That's why I donned a meat suit in this life. So the
That's so
containers that,
beautifully said.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and would you care to share to the listeners how you found your purpose? Because we
that's
are
a
already
great
talking
question.
about finding, working on the purpose that we have. But can you bring us back maybe a few years or a few steps behind and just share if it's a moment or a time in your life that you could pinpoint how were you feeling in your life at the time and what brought you to maybe seeking the purpose in your life and uncovering those situations or the way you wanted to live and fulfill your life.
Absolutely. The significant moment that comes to me really preceded the more spiritual aspects of my journey and the more intentional choosing a transformative path. So, and to use this language, more unconscious of what's possible. I was 21 or 22. I was doing a master's degree. I was living in France, in a small town in France. My master's degree was in material science engineering. And it got to this point where the voice, the inner voice, kept saying, this isn't it. This isn't, in some way of saying it, this isn't it. Whether that was a feeling, an emotion, an awareness, it's up to me to listen to that voice, to recognize. And
What got you
go
to
ahead.
listen to that voice? What got you to listen to that voice? Because
Absolutely.
I think a lot of listeners could really feel the same in some stages of their life, but maybe through the circumstance of the life that they are in right now, maybe studying like you were studying, or maybe through different decisions in their life already being subjected to mortgage payments, specific situations where it's so much harder for them to change and follow a different path. How did you start listening to that voice first and then realizing that this was the right one?
Yeah, that's a fascinating conversation. Discernment between intuition and the fear story that keeps us going towards something. Fascinating question. It still shows up. In this particular case, I was walking back to my dorm room from classes, and I was in such a negative headspace because I was simply, I had lost the will to show up in a way that felt meaningful for me to succeed in my courses. Like I had essentially burnt out. There was no more gas in the tank.
Right.
And when there's no more gas in the tank, that's a really interesting awareness, because when we align from purpose, and I'll come back to that moment in more clarity, when we align to that purpose, it's not about gas in the tank. To me, there's something transcendent that is fueling the experience and the willingness to take one step after the other. So having discovered more of that, and there's still more for me to discover, I know there's a difference between when we burn out and there's this dissatisfaction that's showing up. The question is this the path? Is this what's serving and fulfilling my highest purpose?
When you were
Hmm?
feeling that way, did you already have you had like thoughts of like I'm young, but then this is the path I chosen and I've already failed? Like,
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting experience because I felt like I had never let myself fail at
mm,
anything.
mm,
And that's exciting and scary. I remember feeling very, because I was conceptualizing the possibility that I don't succeed at getting my master's degree. And that's what I had set out to do. And I had thought to myself, well, I've never really let myself fail. I've always played it safe enough and stuck with things that I could succeed at. And that was a really interesting concept to me at the time, to allow myself to fail. And that was really the significant shift in the experience for me, was permission. Permission.
permission.
And
That's a beautiful
the,
word. I think
absolutely.
I'd love to stop here for a second because
Hmm.
you said that word and permission to fail. I think it's one of the very rare situations where I believe right now young men um, are unable to connect with that word, like permitting themselves to fail and to start over and feeling this anxiousness in their lives and be like, I need to, get it going. I need to succeed. And I've experienced this more and more when I connect with younger men in my coaching business right now. And I see that. And every time I say that accept and permit, these words seem foreign to younger men. And I'm very glad that you've said it because I'd love for you to share something connected to that permission, where, from your perspective, obviously, what would be the biggest takeaway point for younger men to realizing how much value and power there is in permitting yourself to fail, learn from that, obviously, and renew and grow in the different direction or pivot or however they'd like to rediscover the life,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what I feel what you did.
Looking back at this and contextualizing my experience from the lens of being a healer, of being a coach, one of the most valuable things is, how can I, through my experience and the wisdom gained through living my life, meet somebody where they are or be close to where they are, so that the guidance or the space there is inviting the next step. And so when I look back to that version of myself and really tune into the permission, I also have to acknowledge some other substantial shifts that had happened for me around that. Namely, losing my mother. She passed away when I was 21, 22. So this was about a year after my mother passed away. And looking through this lens is that in the interior world, our interior experience, what we do is, what I did was I internalized my mother. I was an engineer, not because I wanted to be. It was because I was going to make my parents proud. I was going to be this status symbol in society. I was going to make income. And all of that was, one, protection, layers of armor between my ego state and my authenticity. The permission came when I was walking back and I realized I was in this headspace, being so downtrodden with my current experience at university. And I looked over to the football field, the soccer field, the football field, and a significant shift. There's a lot of things happening right now. So one, I went from looking down tunnel vision to up in space.
Would you be able to zoom out on the perspective?
The Buddhists call that satori. There's a moment there where you look up into space or into nature, it clears the mind. And what I also saw was there was significance to seeing that specific thing, that field, because in my discontent with my studies, I had taken that energy and created a fitness community in this school in France because they didn't have it. And I wanted to do boot camp. I wanted people to run with. I wanted people to do the things that I had discovered recently in my life that I had a passion for. And I loved leading that. And so when I went from this tunnel vision and this heaviness to up and over and lightness to this is something I really like to do. That's the moment the cord broke. There was a rip in my experience, a tear in the fabric that I realized, well, I could do that. I could give my life to that, whatever that is. And I feel like the thing that stops permission is the part of us, it's the safety part of us that needs to have it all figured out. In that moment, I didn't need to have anything figured out other than that is light and right. Leading group fitness for me at the time felt right. Yeah?
Felt right, yes. What would you say the listeners, or how could they tap into or recognize that moment in their life where they're embarking on that journey of finding more purpose, and the crack, like you've described as a rip in the fabric? What advice would you give to younger men, or men of any age actually, in fact, where they find themselves in that place that they realize that they might have been living someone else's life, or a life that someone else has designed for them, for a lack of better reason, in a way that they either accepted it or they didn't have a better plan for themselves, and that could be our parents. And again, I deeply sympathize and understand what you're saying, because I was in a very similar situation, coming from very humbling beginnings in the countryside of Poland. My parents have also put a lot of pressure on me to becoming the first person to have higher education in the family and all these things. So I found myself many times in a very same situation where I was resenting a lot of my life and the situations I was put into, but without realizing I was in the driving seat. So
There it is.
I'd love for you to maybe encapsulate it in 2, 3 things that you feel would help someone if they're in this situation right now. What should they listen to? Or what could help them to realize that there's something else and they can permit themselves to do other?
Yeah. Slow down. In any capacity which you can, slow down. Slowing down creates more space. So, one of the ways to slow down is to recognize, become aware of how fast and to some degree disconnected you are with what it is you're doing in this moment. Even listening to this, are you doing 5 other things? Slow down. Go for a ridiculously slow walk. Create space.
That's an amazing advice, I think. And it brings me to a space where I encounter all the people recently who listen to podcasts at 1.5 or even 2x speed. And for me, it's unfathomable. Like, I'm probably going to butcher this word, unfathomable, where
You got it.
for me to connect with a spoken word like we're doing right now and listen to you with a lot of intention and also understanding, I need to slow down. And I want to acknowledge what you're saying as this first step, because I think it's the most important one. Because then you can, again, as you so well said, zoom out and you can see how many things there is that you're playing with in your life, and then maybe cut some of them or acknowledge that maybe they need a break, and then you can spend some more time with yourself and much slower. I think a lot of things can be enjoyed more when they're slower as well.
Yeah. And recognizing that going at 2x speed it's a practice just as much as slowing down is a practice. So we're really, really good at going fast because we've been practicing that. We've been developing that habit. The next thing would be to perceive life as a series of practices and skills. Because through that lens, do I start to recognize the agency of choice? Oh, I'm really good at getting into arguments, or I'm really good at reacting because I've been practicing that my whole life. My parents taught me where I have PhD in reacting to the experience. Okay, well, if I can recognize that I've practiced that my whole life, what that does is it shifts into my agency that, oh, okay, so there's another possibility for a different practice. What could that look like? What you said before around choosing, slowing down facilitates the space that then awareness can permeate, that there's a choice in this. I'm choosing this. It's a big component of what I like to impart and teach and embody is personal responsibility, not in a heavy, burdensome way. It's personal responsibility. I get to choose. And this is what I'm choosing. And this is what's manifesting. Let me be really honest with myself and integrity about this is what's manifesting. These are the stories that I'm choosing to give significance to believe in. Even believing in something is a practice, a choice. We get to choose the aspects of our identity that have been formulated unconsciously through lots of unconscious practice, meaning we weren't necessarily aware of it. I, for many years, was not aware that my choice around being an engineer or doing certain things was more informed by an inner dialogue around this is what I'm supposed to do, and the story I was buying into that this is what I should do. So giving that slowing down, giving that space, there's also and this is where we get into the real stuff, the vulnerability required to meet ourselves exactly where we are rather than where we think we should be. And there's usually grief. And that's what a lot of men are, if they were really honest with themselves, and that takes time and practice and acceptance to get to that level of honesty, that there's something inside that needs to move, energy that needs to move and trusting this. The experience of energy comes through practice. The experience of seeing life through the lens of energy comes through practice. There's spiritual technologies, yoga, meditation, qigong, so many that can facilitate through slowness the lens of seeing life as energy and seeing the qualities of energy that believing in these certain stories and structures create and what we experience from that. And then a lot of times when we've been living out of, I'll do it for them, I'll do it to please mom, I'll do it to please my partner, I'll do it to please external sources, that builds up. And there's a resentment that can come from that. And in this process of coming back to wholeness, coming back to authenticity, which is the core of what we're talking about. Authenticity is honoring the call. It is choosing to reinvent, choosing to renew when something is out of alignment. That's authenticity. And it's one of the most terrifying and invigorating because coming back to the beginning of conversation, when we live life where we're willing to die, even if it's a psychological death, that is life at its most brilliant experience for me. So if you're in a place, and this is to you who's listening, putting all these pieces together, understanding that everything is a practice, creating space in order to have to be the agency of choosing what am I practicing and choosing what's no longer serving, that I can start to practice something different, which is the same as letting that go. And in this process, the feelings and emotions that arise, that can be anger, guilt, shame, grief around what we have built, all of that gets to move through. And until that moves through, we'll still be unconsciously influenced by that energy. So the more we can bring that experience up that's there naturally, wants to move, wants to be seen. This is the art of seeing ourselves rather than getting our significance, our validation from outside. This is the art of seeing ourselves. And it can be beautiful, it can be messy, and messy can be beautiful in this experience. And know that, and this is what I would say to that version of myself, which I lived, to trust and know that it's one step at a time. A big program for me is being disconnected from where I am versus where I think I should be. And I feel like that's a tremendous wall that comes up as an obstacle to being in our most authentic and meeting ourselves vulnerably in life. That is what supports and facilitates the breakthrough required in order to step into that I'm choosing something different and it's coming from me rather than these external sources. That can be a journey of a lifetime. It can be a journey of years. And that, coming back to permission, even the permission to start, slowing down, listening more with curiosity.
I mean, I've said it already probably 4 times at this last 40 minutes. It's beautifully said. And I want to honor you for this amazing answer. I think there's so much depth just in that answer that we could finish now and go home. But we still have time, and I'd love to go a little bit deeper. Do you feel right now, because we live in this very fast-paced environment, and social media, online, everyone is hustling, do you feel that we have to give ourselves permission to slow down? And if we do, how can we empower ourselves to not feel that we're losing out or we're kind of falling off the wagon, because the wagon is the masses that are going at a very high speed, creating, producing, maybe not always low value things. However, the consumption of things have sped up so much that I feel a lot of men they don't value to slow down, to create a meaningful space for themselves. And I've seen this happen many times. And coming back again, this is the common thread that I want to discover as well with you today, is how men can create that space to slow down, create that spiritual container where they can, first of all, find themselves, find their purpose, but also in that become more confident in leading themselves, and thus leading others, in their friend group, in their community, and becoming much more connected leaders for themselves and then for others.
Yeah. Beautiful question. How can we embrace the process of creating space? And especially in the context of our hyper speed life of information exchange. The first part of this, of unraveling, uncovering, is to recognize when we're comparing ourselves to others and how comparison can facilitate that I need to go faster, I need to be this, I need to be that. So comparison is for me, is very much part of the same unsustainable fuel source that we turn to because we've been modeled that. And we've been modeled that by our parents. We've been modeled that by social media, where it's so easy now to see somebody's 10-year journey encapsulated in one social media video where everything is groovy. And then it's really easy to feel like shit. And and feel like I've got to work harder. I've got to do something different. So recognizing what are the tools, what are the practices that facilitate you being you instead of trying to be somebody else. And where is that coming from? Asking questions. Our mind is such an incredible tool. It's either there's a great statement. Uh, the mind is a terrible master. Great. What is it? Do you know what it is? The
Rings a bell, but I don't know exactly. So you would, yeah, it's all on you.
a great master. No, the mind is a terrible master and a great servant.
Mm.
So the whole process of lifting ourselves out of a state where we are identifying with our mind as ourselves, we can use meditation practice, sitting, observing, focusing, recognizing that, we can observe the mind. So therefore, there's something observing that. And then understanding that the mind has a nature, and the way we can use the mind intelligently, which the mind then becomes a beautiful tool, is by using questions. Because what I've come to recognize through experience is that, and I say that in significance because you've probably heard this said, where your attention goes, energy flows. Hearing that at an intellectual, like, information level, I invite you to look for and experience your attention, and where is your attention going to, and what is that creating as an experience for you. And the tool of a question, and a good question, how this interacts with the mind is, when you ask a great question, your mind goes somewhere, your attention goes somewhere that is looking for something that question sent it towards. You're giving energy to that, and that grows. So understanding the very mechanics through our language, that a question sends the mind somewhere. Then I ask, where would you like to go? Where would you like your attention to go? And this can be as simple as, what would it take to change this? What would it take to change this? And it is an open-ended question. And here's where I would like to get very specific in terms of using this tool intelligently. What would it take to change this? And you may notice immediately the mind fires up and all these different strategies start coming up. Or it could be even limiting beliefs and doubts coming up as well. Ask the question, and instead of listening to everything that a mind immediately spews up, create space. What would it take to change this? And get really still. This could be a 5-minute practice of connecting with your breath, being clear about what feels out of alignment for you. What would it take to change this? And breathe. And be willing to let the first 5,000 thoughts that come through go. Practice letting go. Knowing that the one that comes through that will be a lightning bolt to your entire energy body, it comes through that being stillness. And you'll feel that when the mind gets to the gold, when the attention strikes the center, and it's there is where we get a different source of energy. What would it take to change this? So in the context of going really fast, feeling drained, feeling burned out, how can I create space in my life? That's another great question. How could I invite more space in my life to slow down? What would I like that to look and feel like? And these are the questions that already it's an invitation to slow down and go into this process that is contemplation. So there's thinking, I think considers this in three levels. Thinking mind, that's superficial, that's busyness. The yogis call that chitta. It's the waves on the surface of the ocean. It's always busy. Consider something. When you consider something, you've visited it more than once. You're giving your attention to it even more. And then the third layer would be contemplation. Let me contemplate this deeply instead of the reactivity that comes from, let me latch on. I'm thrashing at the surface of the ocean. Let me latch on to the first thing that feels like it'll give me buoyancy. This is a good opportunity, like we talked about. This is the surrender, this is the allowing to drop down deeper into the experience of a question so that the question itself becomes a sacred tool. Instead of a careless question, it's a caring question. And that
That's
your
so beautifully
trust.
said.
Mm,
Um, you started at contemplating, and that's a word I rarely use, but I think I find myself contemplating a lot, especially when I'm on my own, rather than just trying to plan things. I find myself just contemplating on the one thing. And for me, contemplating means going really deeply into specific, maybe options or situations connected at the beginning. And then from there, as our conversation is probably one of the good examples of contemplating as well, because we started at some earlier point and we're going deeper and deeper into more specific areas of a first question. I think we arrived here from the first question. And that contemplation, at least for me, allows to slow down, as you said, and it only not only that, but also it allows to shine more awareness on the situations or experiences that in passing or when I have less time to think of might not feel as meaningful. But when I do contemplate on them, I feel that there's so much more meaning in them and so much more to gain and learn. Um, and when you use contemplation, what do you mean? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. How can we, if someone has not found himself contemplating a lot, how would how could they start? How could they
mm,
create that space? Because we're coming back time and time
mm.
creating that space, and the cultivation of that contemplation.
Mm-hmm. I consider contemplation the divine masculine quality of the mind. It's to penetrate, to go deep, to break through layers into something, into an idea or into a concept, and to go through the superficial into the deeper reservoirs of whatever that is. And it goes back to, you don't know what you don't know. Simple. And where your attention goes, energy flows. And when energy goes towards something, it expands. So contemplation is about being able to train the mind, and that's a practice. And I definitely want to get back to creating the space for that. Training the mind so that it can be sharp to penetrate deeper into something, into what we're considering. So thoughts into consideration, go deeper, contemplate. There's more space already in contemplation. Within contemplation, there is seeing different angles, different possibilities. It's a digestive process. It's an integration process. It's an assimilation process. When we are in the field of contemplation, we're no longer just at the superficial idea of something. We're now, in a sense, through our mind's power to create an image and a fantasy or um, visualization of an experience, and we can run through the feelings that arise from that. We can have the experience within contemplation, and there is a space of recognizing, getting deeper towards what feels authentic, what feels, and that's the key word. This is the dance between the divine masculine and feminine, because the mind is penetrating, it's going there, and because the mind is going there, we're feeling and experiencing and visualizing something, and then we're also, in this sense, holding space for ourselves to get to the part of it that feels aligned, that feels, this is the action to take. Slow action, process oriented approach. And the way to create space for that, think about all you can eat buffet. We are in the information age. Information is all you can eat buffet. I was so overweight as a kid, and I would hit an I would hit an all you can eat buffet like nobody's business. 4 plates, no problem. Except it was a big problem, because obviously that would store as fat on my body, sluggishness, lethargy, brain fog, all of this density. Have you ever noticed, if you ate so much that your body had such a difficult time digesting it, that you had to sleep on the couch, or you didn't feel like doing the workout, or didn't feel like doing the things that you had intended to do because there was an overload? And we can consider this in the same way with information. Right now, there's information overload. So, in order to create space for this, the invitation is to start unplugging. How many YouTube videos do you watch? Netflix do you watch? All the things that are coming in as information as stimulus. It's keeping us at the superficial layers.
In this part, how would you describe for someone who is having a hard time unplugging? How would you say, first of all, how to maybe filter some of the information that they're getting? Because there's so much, and we cannot trust all the algorithms that are designed to show us what's best for you, but a lot of times they're just there to keep us scrolling. How would you describe an intentional, deliberative way of gathering information, but also allowing yourself to unplug or you could gauge where you have enough information to either upskill or create something that you were not able to create before with that information? How would you describe that? Almost like charging a battery, right? You're watching something to learn, you're watching something for entertainment, but I feel a lot of times we're having issues right now with calibration of where the cessation is, the level of cessation. And I think this comes back, obviously, to so many forms, like you mentioned, the all-you-can-eat buffet, and guilty as charged as well. I love all-you-can-eat buffets. And how can we connect more with finding the levels of cessation and getting
Yeah.
information?
That's a fascinating question. To feel full, to feel satiated, to feel full. It's a bottomless pit when we are disconnected to ourselves. And it will fuel our disconnection when we are watching something that is more numbing. And it's a way, so where I would start with this is to notice how you feel after you've consumed some content. I would say the process, that pattern starts to disintegrate when we start to feel. And so if you even between, if you're, I'm going to talk to somebody who's consuming information all day, every day, whether it's through the phone or through the screen on the laptop or the television. Can you break that up into a moment between choosing the next thing and having a 30-second, this is an invitation to the most simple, accessible way of shifting this, to having a moment of assessment where you take your eyes off the screen and you could even look up into something spacious and have a moment. Where do I feel right now? And to feel that, it would be really tempting, and a really well practiced thing, I imagine, for most of us, is to go into the intellectualization of that. So, again, the invitation is to, it could even be a closing the eyes and breathing a few rounds of breath. How do I feel right now? To start to break that up and to create micro space of checking in. Because it's like I said, and I've experienced this, it's so easy to be numb and disconnected. And that's when the void, it's a void. No matter how much information we put into it, it's going to fuel the chasm of our disconnection. So the way that you build it back is by incorporating 15, 30 seconds an intention to connect with yourself and honestly say, did that nourish me? Was that nourishing? Because the opposite of that, being unsatiated, is to feel nourished, to feel like this podcast or this piece of content, delicious. I feel full right now. Now let me go for a walk without any devices and contemplate something that is meaningful around that.
That's so beautifully said. And could you give us an example of those 15, 20 seconds or a type of breathwork that maybe you could recommend to the listeners that they could simply either find, or you can even do it right now with us? Something that would break the cycle, as you said, to feel more into our feelings. Driving right now, please don't do this. Wait until you're comfortably seated in your home or in your office, and try it out so you can create a little bit more space for yourself. So please.
Wherever you are, get even more comfortable. How could you get even more comfortable? What does that feel like? However you're situated. Start by softening your gaze, take in the entire space. Let's take a deep breath in together, in through the nose. Smooth breath out through the mouth. Nice and slow. Full deep breath in through the nose. Smooth breath out through the mouth. If you feel comfortable, gently close your eyes. And come immediately to your breath, natural breath, in through your nose and out through your nose. And this is the practice. The moment the eyes close, attention can turn inward. So as you stay connected with your breath, notice, is there any tension held in your shoulders? Relax your shoulders. Any tension in your jaw? Relax your jaw. Relax the space between your eyebrows and behind your eyes. Back to your breath. Now we'll put our attention into the heart, the space, the center of your chest. And simply with your breath, notice what's there as a feeling, as a sensation, even as an emotion. Even if there feels like there's no experience there, I invite you to stay with your attention at your heart. With the question, what else is here? What else is here? I feel that. Good. What else is there? And to drop your attention even deeper into your belly, with your natural breath, simply tuning in with your attention. What's here to feel? What do I sense here? We'll have a few breaths to simply listen. If the mind wanders, return back to your breath, and your attention goes right to your belly, feeling what's here. And then what? And now what do I feel? This exploration and inviting the question, and now what do I feel? It can be very easy to interact with a sense of feeling numb as I feel nothing. And the awareness is that feelings, sensations are always dynamic, always changing. So even from one breath to the next, when we keep inviting, and now what do I feel? And listening from a place of I don't know, from a place of curiosity. Good. That's a practice. We'll take another breath, deep breath out, empty, 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 everything out, belly button to spine. And a full deep breath in through the nose. Belly, ribs, chest, all expand. And a big sigh through the mouth. Slowly invite you to open your eyes if they were closed. Now that was quicker than 30 seconds. That was longer than 30 seconds. With practice, I guiding that, I feel different. I feel more centered. Imagine creating a micro practice out of that where you feel you may be up to the brim, a sense of overwhelm or overstimulation. And you can ask, what would it take to change this? And it might pop into your head, oh, what if I just sit with this for 30 or 45 seconds, or 2 minutes, or 3 minutes, or 5 minutes? What could I experience differently? Because the I don't know what I don't know is a really powerful awareness, because we have so many assumptions about what we'll experience instead of curiosities.
And letting
It's
go
different.
and
Yeah.
having the space to feel. I felt so much gratitude. Obviously, this was again longer than the 20-30 seconds, but also like I know it was longer. However, it doesn't feel longer because sometimes feeling takes time. But I felt
Mm-hmm.
so much gratitude towards you as facilitating the space for us today, and for being on a podcast as a guest. Um, and I think it's a beautiful way to segue to the finishing questions and the finishing part of today. So thank you for this part. It's been fantastic to go in deeper into the areas where we can create more meaningful space for ourselves as men. To summarize our conversation today, and I know we've went through many different areas. However, I think there is a thread, and so if you could summarize in as many steps as you want, or a one concept, what would you say to someone who wants to change but don't necessarily know how to change? Or I know you have mentioned asking questions, which is so powerful. And you can go and repeat that and add something new. But I think there's something more there, that to a person that is experiencing what I just described could tip over into believing that they can change, and allow themselves to change, permit the change of habits, of their life situation, and also not to be overwhelmed with maybe where they want to be, and being able to break down everything into smaller goals. And I love that you use this concept of micro, because I think a lot of situations where I find myself struggling is that I tend to think about the final result, and it's so overwhelming because I might be here, but I want to go so much, so far here. And I think that's a great advice already, and that's probably one of the biggest things that I will take from our conversation today is those micro expressions, micro situations where I can cultivate more connection. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Speaking to myself, speaking to you listening, speaking to you, Atlas, when we come to interface with that part of ourselves that is experiencing a discontent with the way things are, and there's a desire for change born in that, a desire for something different. The my favorite piece it's a one-liner that is just going to drop you.
That's
You
cool.
can't fuck this up. You can't fuck this up. Now, what's the first step? And this happens with various people, various personality types. I'm experienced like you, Atlas, where the vision can be big and overwhelming. And it's easy to get into that space. It's a mental space. And it's beautiful. And what we can do to ground that is essential. One of the most grounding practices I know is to write things down. Writing things down is a process of slowing things down. Our thoughts can go 1,000,000 miles per hour. We can only write so many words down in a moment. So in order to ground some of this desire to change, write about what's showing up and what is the desire to change. And the reason I led with, I can't fuck this up. To me, I'm very conscious about words and their impact. When I first heard that, I believe I was listening to a book by Byron Katie, who's an amazing teacher, author, healer. And that is exactly what that part of me needed to initiate something different. Because there's an underlying question that we're all running to some degree. We're all practicing this question. What if I fuck this up? What if I do it wrong? What if it's not the right path? Right? So having an awareness that that question can be operating in the background, bring it to your awareness and invite I can't fuck this up into the ring and let them go at it. And then the other aspect of this is, what if it goes right? What if it goes great? And as you're writing this down, pen to paper, what I invite you is, whatever it is it possible to become more clear on what is the beginning of it? What are the first few chapters of it, if it were a story? To talk ourselves into more manageable expectations of ourselves, because this is a journey of a lifetime. So let's get started and talk ourselves into continuing this journey one step at a time. And what if, best case scenario, I invite you to write that down, whatever it is for you. If it's a health journey, a relationship journey, a spiritual journey, career, purpose, work journey, what if it goes best case scenario? Read that out loud once you've written it down and take a deep breath. See how that feels in your body. And then what if I do this week that is in alignment with that feeling? Write that down, specifically what you could do this week, and take a deep breath after you read it out loud. Can it be made into simpler, more actionable tasks? Good. What if I do first step? Write it down, take a deep breath. As you read it out loud, I encourage reading it out loud as well as writing it down. This is the art of talking ourselves into change, because we are in the interior world at odds with all the old structures and identities that have to die for a new version of us to be born. and they will summon their arms and they will go to battle with this version of you that you're calling in through this change. So it becomes essential to talk ourselves into that, because all of that stuff wants to show up. What if it goes wrong? What if I'm a failure? What if I fuck up? You can't fuck up. Get into alignment with this energy, and what's the next step right there? For Atlas, creating this podcast. Here we are. One step after the other, we got here. And this is just the beginning. The proverb, when is the best time to plant a tree? Well, 15 years ago, of course. When's the next best time to plant the tree? Right now. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, I was thinking a lot today about how the first ever podcast will go for me and how this container is going to feel and how it's going to be. And brother, I am so grateful for you and for your space and for your time, because I think this is one of those podcasts where I'd like to listen to it a lot. um, there's so much information packed in there. So I'm so deeply grateful for all of your knowledge and all of your wisdom. And I deeply, deeply applaud you for doing the work that you've done so far and leading so many beautiful people on journeys of change through your own work. So again, I deeply applaud you, and I see you. And thank you for these last actionable steps, and I hope they're going to help some of our listeners. Last two parts of this endeavor today is two things that you can say. One of them is a question, and one of them is a recommendation. So, without knowing who is going to be the next podcast guest, I'd love for you to ask them a question. Ask them a question that would maybe selfishly get something for yourself and get some answers, but you don't know who it is going to be answering. And I love that about this question. Or for the broader audience. The floor is yours.
I'm excited. All right, here it is. How do you access curiosity, wonder, and awe? And what does that mean to you? How do you access curiosity, wonder, and awe in your life? What does that mean to you?
That's such a beautiful question. And for a very specific reason, I'm going to be asking these questions at the beginning of the podcast, because I think they can shape a lot of amazing interactions and conversations for the years to come. So thank you for that question. And the last part today is, I'd love for you, and we spoke about this in our conversations, obviously. I'd love for more people, and especially for more men, to reach out and listen and learn and also read. So what would be the book that would you recommend as maybe even two, if you'd like to share, one that you're enjoying currently right now on your path, and one that you feel is a non-negotiable for a man who is changing, who is looking for purpose, who is looking to be better? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Two books. The War of Art, which I recommended to you, by Stephen Pressfield. A very significant book in my life. It is all about the engaging in this inner battle as creators of our life and creators of whatever our purpose work is, whatever our craft is. For the author, it's writing. So it's the war of art with regards to his craft of writing, and really makes it practical for the all levels of accessing that, whether it's to any initiative to get better. The War of Art is an amazing book, and it's written by a man's man for that I feel like will very much influence men. Like, it speaks to the archetype of the warrior and the creator. So The War of Art by
Beautiful.
Stephen
Thank you.
Pressfield. And I personally love to listen to these. I listen to his on audio, but get it paperback or listen to it. The next one is, I would recommend for somebody who's in this space, walked a little bit of this path of healing, of maybe you've sat in some circles or practiced some yoga and gone some places with it. It's called Being You, Changing the World. Being You, Changing the World by Dr. Dane Here. In fact, Steve and Dave, the Happy Pair, recently interviewed him. Dane Here on their podcast. I really like listening to that book as well, because they both narrate their own books.
That's fantastic.
Different approaches, and as many tools as we can have in our toolkit in this journey of life, the better. I love and value both of them. Both of them have been very significant. Both of them create and inspire the purpose in me that wants to come through. So those are very high quality, amazing books to read or listen to.
Fantastic. Thank you, brother, for these two recommendations. And last but not least, how our listeners could connect with you. This is your moment where, if you want to share something exciting that's happening in your life right now, and your professional endeavors, if you're preparing something, or already there is something that you would like to offer. Obviously, this is going to be in show notes as well. But if there's something that you're so excited that you cannot wait to share, there you have it.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple of things. The first is a container. It's an online course and class container called the Jefe Living Collective. Jefe is the nickname, what I've decided to call my brand, my business. And it, in Spanish, means leader, means boss. And it's all around our self-responsibility, our ownership of our journey, and the amazingness that is. And the Jefe Living Collective is a course platform where I've recorded lots of meditations and courses and trainings, whether it's around yoga and breath work or some of the shamanic ceremonial practices that have really elevated me into my path. And so that's there. And there's also weekly classes, and I'm building community in that. So you're welcome to join. I'd love to have you show up for a class. We can connect. And also, for those of you who are healers, who are yoga teachers, practitioners, coaches, you are in this business. We're walking the path together. Has it ever dawned on you to lead a retreat for your community, for your clients? A weekend retreat where you bring people together. For me, the power and potency of bringing people together and sharing our tools, our wisdom, our practices, and creating community at the same time is one of the most transformational things that we can do as we shift consciousness at the collective level, really supporting, really leveling up. The world today, it is what it is, and it's very beautiful when we choose to be in the sphere of beauty, and it can be a complete mess if we're in the sphere of mainstream toxic stuff. And my intention is to bring as many people into consciousness, into connecting with their path, with their purpose as possible, And what this container is, it's called Rising Tide Retreats Training, is where I meet with coaches, facilitators, teachers that feel called to lead a weekend retreat. And I support you with the tools, the know-how to do that successfully, to create an impact for your community, because we need leaders in this, at this level, at this space where we've gotten the goodness from the practices and it's time to share with community in a greater capacity. So if you're feeling called to do that, Rising Tide Retreats Training is a course and a coaching container where I'm supporting you with that from my experience, bringing in others' experience who've led many retreats, myself included, been a part of and led many retreats and containers, to go from everything from meeting the imposter syndrome, overcoming that, to creating the leadership identity, to working and engaging in community, the logistics and business side of the retreat, all of that. So I just envision more people like you and I and other facilitators and coaches leading their community and meaningful weekend experiences as a way that we're building this energy up towards what we're creating. All the energy goes towards what we're creating in this earth, in this planet, collectively as humans, and also for harmony back with the planet as well, with Mother Earth. So that's the other offering. And those two go together in some aspects. It's a lot of facilitators want to deepen their practices. That's all in Hefe Living Collective. And also there's the coaching for showing up, creating your experience authentically in Rising Tide Retreats Training. So thank you for giving me the space to share about that.
Of course, my
And if
pleasure.
anybody feels interested in connecting with me, welcome to do that on social media, Instagram, Hefe AF, Authentic Boss, another way of saying that. Yeah, you can reach out to Atlas. He'll put you in touch with us. It'll be really good. Thank you, brother.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that share as well. And my 2 cents on this as well. Jeff, thank you very much for sharing what you're offering right now. And I'd also love to share my experience with you, because one of the first, actually, no, the first ever cacao ceremony that I've ever experienced in my life was with you back in County Wicklow in Greystones. And since then, I've embarked on having at least 50 and facilitating some of them for a deeper audience as well. So I know how beautifully you create and co-create spaces. So if you guys interested in any of these offerings from Hefe, please reach out to him directly on socials. So again, brother, thank you very much for today. I'm very excited to share this episode.